Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Hey, so real fast, this afternoon we're going to do a kind of a switch on a normal bub, and we're going to hear from Mr. David Woods Bartley here pretty soon, who's going to talk to us about something that is that we really every now and then have to pause and to make sure we bring it to the forefront of our of what we're doing as leaders. Whether it's here or whether it's out in the field, and that's the topic of SHARP, and not particularly just the topic of SHARP, but some TTPs, some ways of looking at SHARP and the situations that can lead into some type of incident. And he's gonna, I had the great privilege of having lunch with him right before we came into here. And I would tell you that I think that it's a different approach than we're used to. It's a different approach than what we're used to. And the reason why he's here with us this week is to open our minds up a little bit about the different types of considerations that are out there so that we can all be part of getting after zero. Zero incidents. Zero incidents. Zero incidents in this unit. Zero incidents amongst our friends and our families. And eventually allow those considerations to spread like wildfire so that we can keep that number of zero for the duration of really our lives. But it starts with one engagement at a time. It starts with each and every one of us understanding different considerations of how we could be part of preventing and championing the effort of the victim before they even become a victim of sexual assault. So, with no further ado, I know our time is limited. My thanks to the company commanders who were able to get on this afternoon as well. I want to turn it over to David.
So I want to first tell you why I'm here, and it's not just at the invitation of the Colonel, but equal to my wife, equal to my children. This man here is the most important person in my life, and it's my brother. I have three brothers, John, Jim, and Tom. The middle two are more brotherly. The eldest is like my father. So he is Major General John Bartley, one of those unique Mustangs. He actually enlisted in the Army in 1970 as an E1 on a loader on an M60 tank. E1, E5, ultimately went to West Point, branched armor, and was the first company commander here in Europe to have an M1 company. Just worked his way up, never below the zone. My brother is actually really, really humble. And I was 7. We lost our father. He's 18. He's my dad. And I never had a chance to serve, and now, really for me, because of God, the majority of the work that I do now around the world is to tell my story. I finally get a chance to honor this human being who means the world to me. And so today, this hour, this is such a privilege. This is not work. This is a joy, is to just share with you a bunch of stories. My journey that continues from mental illness to mental wellness, and it all started on August 31st, 2011, and that was the day I was going to kill myself. That's the day that I call the monster convinced me of two sets of things. On the first hand, that I was worthless. I was useless, I was stupid, I was pitiful, I was grotesque, I was ugly, I was an embarrassment and a burden. Nobody said these things to me, and yet I believed those to be true. And if that wasn't enough, the straw that broke my spiritual, my mental, and psychological back was on that day. What I believed to be true was if I killed myself, well, there's no way I could be selfish because everybody would be better off without me. Now, please know, I have no clinical background. I'm just a guy. And with that, everything I'm going to share with you are opinions. I will give you 3 TTPs, but all I want to do ultimately is to get everybody to the end of the day. I'm not talking about 4,298 days. That's too far out in the future. Everything I'm going to share is just to create the possibility that we can all get to the end of today. Because if we can get to the end of today, there is the possibility, I don't know if it's going to be better or worse, but we at least set up the possibility for somebody to get to the end of tomorrow. Now, I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. For those of you, and I honor if you feel like suicide is taking the easy way out. Well, if you kill yourself, all you're doing is you're passing along your problems. I totally honor that. I totally honor if you think it's selfish. That's okay. All I'm trying to do is to add one small, almost imperceptible, different perspective to the great work that's always being done. And so here's this day, August 31st, 2011, my then wife, Deanna, we're living about 2 hours east of San Francisco, and we had a perfectly rectangular piece of property, 2.5 acres. I loved this property. I was going to miss this property. I was going to desperately miss my wife. I was going to especially miss the work that we were doing in service to the community. Please know, I did not have a death wish. Now that may seem contrary, so well, wait, the three-headed monster is depression, it's trauma, it's suicidal ideation. That was this thing that was convincing me of all these lies that I took as true. So how can you say if you admit you had suicidal ideations that you didn't want to have a death wish? What I'd say is they're not the same thing. There is a chasm wide between a death wish and a suicidal ideation. I desperately wanted to live. The majority of the people, if you read an interview, if you look at some notes, people don't want to die. But what happens is in that moment, when a person is here, when a person is making sure the noose is going to hold tight, when they've calculated that I have to take enough of this to wash down with this, they're there for the sole reason that life has become more difficult to live than it is to die, which I will circle back. A lot of what I'm going to say seems preposterous, and I'm just giving you my opinion. And ultimately, the first opinion is that people get there because of a belief. I went to that place because of a belief. Now, we all have beliefs. Beliefs are incredibly enticing. They're very powerful. They don't need fact. There are people, and it is not just a handful, shocking to me, that are called flat earthers. They believe the world is flat. It doesn't matter if we show them a picture of this purple marble. They don't care. They think that that's paper mache. They believe this to be true. There are people who believe that 9/11 was a completely staged event. Probably the most horrific set of beliefs, or the singular belief, is there are people who believe that the Sandy Hook nightmare, in which young children and adults were killed, that the adults and the surviving children, nope, they're all actors. Now, I don't believe any of those things, but I set up these horrific contrasts to say that's the power of belief. Like, nobody said those things to me. And you'll realize that no one saw me the way that I saw me. But on that day, I believed this and this. So, woke up one morning at the end of August in Northern California. There's no chance of rain. Took a final reconnoiter around that property that I loved that I was going to miss, and typed out this. To my beloved Deanna, my family and friends, I have decided that the time has come for me to go. I am choosing to end my life so I can be free of the pain in my heart and soul, the betrayal of my mind, and the depth of self-hatred that I feel most every moment of every day. I have become the burden I wish I never would, and a drag on those around me. I am a damaged shell of just a little boy, not yet close to what a man should be. Everyone, yes everyone, I know that everyone will be much better off without me. I am so incredibly sorry, David. And I took the note off the printer, and of course, without telling anybody where it's headed, I made just a short 20-minute drive. And this was not the first time I had made this drive. At that point, at 48 years old, I had thought about killing myself so many times that what they call the neurological pathways, the roadways of thought, were like deep ruts in a country road. Like my mind just slid into it. So I drove 20 minutes from where we live to what's known as the Forest Hill Bridge. Now, if you Google 10 tallest bridges in the United States, you'll see Forest Hill at right about number 4. At 730 feet tall, it is 500 feet further off the ground than its more famous cousin, just 2 hours to the west. Now, reasons, awful, should have never happened reasons, I will share a little bit later. I had driven to the bridge, as mentioned. Sometimes I think, where am I going to go today? And let's just drive for a bridge. Let's walk to the midpoint. Let's go to that place that's 730 feet above the North Fork of the American River. So today, I didn't need my GPS. So interesting, I'm very much about symbolism and about serendipity. And if I look back, it dawned on me that my vehicle at the time was a fire engine red, like, oh my God, soul inside is in danger, 1996 Dodge Dakota pickup truck. I mean, even my vehicle was emblematic of the crisis. So brought my truck to a rest, turned off the motor, put my hands, and I noticed I put my hands reflectively on the 10 and 2 position of the steering wheel, and I closed my eyes, and it was just for a moment. And before I opened my eyes, I took this deep breath, opened them, and I remember I clapped my hands, like, okay, it's time to go. Note, center of the dash, keys, center of the note, exit, turn back around, checked it 3 times. I wanted to make sure that my family knew what I was feeling, knew what I believed. Crossed over, came to the closest end of the bridge. Now you can imagine an engineering marvel that stands 730 feet above the river. It's going to give you a commanding view. But we've all seen those carriage horses with blinders on. I was blind. The only thing I saw, like my view was the circumference of a paper towel roll. There's a light post right in the middle. Focus here, and yet my senses are on high alert. So a bridge is meant to bounce. when the cars go by. It's already warm at that point in the day. I can already feel this breeze is strong enough from the North Fork of the American River that I can feel it swirling around, but the only thing I see is that light post. I bend, hit the midpoint, rail is here, bend over, and I'm like a bird. And I'm focused down on the river. And again, I feel this breeze. I can feel the cars when they go by. I remember that the rail was about 4 to 5 inches long. And I remember having this thought, there was contrast between the heat that I felt on my neck, and yet the rail was cool. And I closed my eyes for a second time, and now I'm preparing. I only have to shift my body weight about 2%, because at that point I'm pivoting. There's 51% here, 49% forward, and my head is down. I really only need a heavy thought. And I'd done the math. It takes 7.5 seconds for the body to fall 730 feet. And here was this last thought, getting ready, and then a question. The question was the first series of divine serendipity that had me be here today. And what it was, is it going to hurt? This question. I'd thought about everything. Thankfully, but interestingly, I'd never thought about that question. So now this focus, now I have to attach this. So I've checked all these boxes. Are you worthless? All these other things. Now I have to answer this question. It's not that I'm afraid of the pain, but it's this inquiry. And the reason I say it was life-saving, because it kept me paused in that position long enough. Somebody looked at this driving by and thought, oh dear God, that's not right. I know they picked up 911 because the sheriff's deputy approached me from the left-hand side and did the thing that is the foundation of this new set of beliefs for me. He created connection. Connection at its core, we know this to be true. It's not just this broad conceptual thing. It is tangible. It is actual. We all know this to be true because when we were connected with one other person, in my lunch with a colonel, as I shared with him, I felt seen, I felt heard, and I felt valued. It is the foundational of great leadership, but not just what we wear here in the middle in the green suit. We're all leaders of something. He created this by ways I will share with you, and please be clear, he never touched me. He used connection. Connection creates hope. Hope is a weapon. It's not just this cute, cuddly thing. It is tenacious. It is the single greatest form of ordinance against this monster called suicide. Because hope saves lives. Because in the moment, in a line of disruptive beliefs, it can pause. It can rob the monster of oxygen. Because when I'm in the space, when I feel seen, heard, and valued, because of the safety of my mind, I cannot think about killing myself. It's impossible. I can't entertain two thoughts. Now, sometimes that can keep you safe for 4,298 days. Sometimes it can keep us safe till the end of the day, because it creates, which is I'm all about, is just possibilities. I think what's happening is we're approaching a very fluid, flexible, non-linear problem in a linear way. All I'm asking is let's match what the battle rhythm is of the enemy. He plays by no rules of engagement. How about we throw him some curveballs, and these TTPs are just those things. So I'm taken off a bridge and now headed to a psych ward. And I'm going to an insane asylum. At least that's what I think. Because all I can think about is One Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest by Jack Nicholson. And at the end of the movie, they do a frontal lobotomy. I'm like, I'm done. Those 15 days changed my life. I never had a bad day in the psych ward. Because ultimately, you know what happened? I understood. For me, it's a 3-step process to get that gets, I'm going to say, everybody to that terrible place. The foundation is something bad happens. Something is traumatic. But I want to give you a different perspective on trauma, if you'll bear with me. Let's just say this bad thing. Now, not just in the Army, pretty much in the world, we don't talk about it. What that does is it spawns a pattern of thought. All beliefs are created by a pattern of thought, be them positive or negative. We don't need data. It doesn't. The pattern of thought spins off individual feelings, collectively their emotions. People kill themselves. People don't kill themselves because of what they think. What pulls this trigger finger back towards the person is a feeling. It's emotions. People kill themselves because of how they feel, not because of what they think. That sucks for the Army. It sucks for all the branches of the military because you're not really good about that. But until we allow there to be some relief of this, and these TTPs, I think, work to do that, we will never allow a person to look at, wow, this is what I believe, and we won't let them then potentially learn how to think different, and then ultimately, what is this thing? What is this thing? And in the psych ward, I discovered, what is this thing? So family finds out where I am and why, and to say they were confused, that'd be an understatement. Because people didn't see me how I saw myself. People saw me married to this wonderful woman, Deanna, who's still a good friend of mine, and we ran an animal sanctuary. Animal sanctuary is called A Chance for Bliss, and it was home to as many as 100 at any one time. 25 horses, 23 dogs, 9 pot-bellied pigs, goat, sheep, ducks, geese, bunnies, birds, turtles, and fish. No snakes. And thanks to my former beloved, who's just an amazing woman, she said, babe, let's do it different. I'm like, what do you mean? Let's take the ones that nobody wants. I'm like, please explain. Let's take the dying ones. Let's take the ones that have been abused and tortured. Let's take the ones that had no eyes and no leg. Let's take the ones that nobody wants, the ones that had no place to go. I'm like, okay. And so we did. We were what's called a forever home. And on June 2nd, 2010, we were the cover story in the life section of USA Today. I did not fit the image. You would have never in a million years, because when you came to the sanctuary, I'd get you talking about yourself so fast you wouldn't even think about asking me a question. Plus, I'm the happy guy, I'm gonna give you a hug, I'm picking up manure, like, yeah, and it was my purpose at the time, but what people didn't know, this thing, which I believe is what hurts us the most, cannot be seen. Now, I think it's incredibly essential that we teach the signs. But I had no signs. And I'll ask a quick question here. Of the people here who've had the unimaginably tragic experience of knowing someone, of losing someone to suicide, how many people have had that experience? Thank you, and I'm sorry. Of those, how many showed clear and obvious signs? 2 out of 3 out of 10. Now, I love Big Army. If I could, I bleed green, I don't wear green. One of the issues that I see with Big Army, and I understand the intent, that all these great trainings that I've taken, assist, and all these other ones, the challenge is we're setting up people for failure and we're setting up people for guilt. Because it says, okay, here are the signs, look for them, you're gonna see them. It's never more than 5 or 10%, no matter where I go, the signs are not there, so what are we doing? If we knew the signs, everybody would raise their hands. So here's the only thing I'm gonna add at the end of the training. Here's the thing I've taught you. Here's the training, you got it. Here's the bad news, you're almost never gonna see it. Well, what do I do? You know what you need to do is realize suffering is everywhere. Now I want you to be a Sherlock Holmes of connection. Because what's gonna happen, if you broaden your foundation of awareness, you may have the opportunity to see this one thing that may not be the singular reason somebody kills himself, but what is that one thing, as I shared with the Colonel, that could add one crepe thin layer to a stack of beliefs? Maybe that's enough. But the TTPs can also take that one thing out. Nobody knew. What did they miss? Nothing. They didn't know. You're not missing anything. For those of you who've had the tragic experience of losing someone, you did not miss anything. And not your fault, because we are masters at hiding it. Because for me, I thought I'd be kicked to the curb like one of those animals. And just 14 short months after this mountaintop experience of being in USA Today, there I was on a dark spot, on a tall, tall bridge, one heavy thought away from killing myself. But here it is, 4,298 days later in this journey from mental illness, which continues, to mental wellness. And as I say, I've been looking forward to this for months. This beautiful soul here, Brandy, tell you what, the individuals who work in Sharp, but to finally be here, to have the time with the Colonel, with the Chief, this is not work. What I say to the Army, you are my church. I'm not saying it from like every day on the side. Every day that I breathe it's my church. And here's what I want to share: 4 things, 3 TTPs. The first thing is what I say: the why, the feeling, the cause, and the healing. Why do people kill themselves? And what I like to say, with all due respect, we have no idea. We think we do. We think, okay, we've had this, and this, and that's not the case. That's part of the things that we're going down a path that's not going to yield us anything. Kay Redfield Jamison is an extraordinary researcher and has had her own suffering with bipolar. Here's what she says: each way to suicide is its own, intensely private, unknowable, and terrible. Suicide will seem to its perpetrator the last and best of bad possibilities, and any attempt by the living to chart this final terrain of life can only be a sketch maddeningly incomplete. And we don't know. And you know what? That's actually okay. And to begin with, we're asking the wrong question. If I had time, I would have every one of you take a piece of paper and write the question why on it, put a big X through it, and put it in a shredder. It is a totally useless question, because every why requires justification. Why are you late? Hey man, would you please tell me what caused you to be late? Totally different. One is punitive, one has an aspect of investigation. We're not going to ever answer the question of why. What we need to do, remember the foundation? What caused somebody to kill themselves? That's totally different. This will yield us the answers that we need. That said, what I believe to be true, two things are always present, and I'm resistant to use absolutes, but I think in this case, my belief, two things are present when a person is here, here, here. First thing is, when you're suicidal, you believe that everything you think is true. Everything. You do not have the ability to discern thought, not because you're stupid, because Aristotle says it's a sign of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought and accept it or not. So really what he's saying is people who kill themselves or attempt to are stupid. Well, you stated, my God, you're running an end-of-life animal sanctuary. You must have some worth. Well, the world's flat. No, it's not. Yes, it is. You'd have to imagine, like, what's the impact going to be on Deanna? Well, she's going to be happy. It doesn't make sense. This is not a malady of the mind. People don't lose their mind. Believe me, that would be nice to kind of take a break from it. What happens is their soul gets ripped apart. So in that moment, you believe everything you think is true. And as described, it's harder to live than it is to die, which makes no sense at all. Because you think we are hardwired to survive. That's the strongest part of our being. How could it ever be any otherwise? And here's the analogy I use, and I always preface this, I use with great respect and honor. 9/11, Twin Towers, we know what happens. We know there were people stranded there. So just imagine once, it's not hard for us to imagine being there. So you're there, you're shaken to the core by the cacophony of noise. Now smoke precedes flame, can't see, can't breathe, now you feel the heat. Were those people mentally ill, the 212 who jumped? Should they have been more resilient? Did the situation exceed their coping skills? Well, of course it didn't. But what we would do is, because they killed themselves, we'd say, well, no, you know what? You should have been able to withstand that. You should have been able to work hard enough to somehow survive that inferno. And do we shame those people? Well, of course we don't. We read their names every 9/11, and the people who subsequently, in all these years, can no longer carry the weight of this trauma, when they end their life, we add their names to the list. Why do we do it? One reason. We understand it. There but for the grace of God, but why? The reason I use the analogy for somebody like me, it's the only analogy I can tell you, because I still suffer. I still have terrible days. I still think about killing myself. I probably will for the rest of my life. The difference is, it's a day. It's not a week, it's not 48 years, but it's important because I can share with you. Like, these feelings will kill you. They will. So imagine a time that you've been incapacitated by pain. Imagine a time you have been so incredibly tired you cannot put one foot in front of the other. Imagine a time that you have been so disappointed because you said something, you did something, or you failed to do something. You're like, God, I can't believe I did that. Imagine a time that you have been so sad you put your dog down. Your best friend got hit by a drunk driver. And then take all that. Take fatigue and despair and self-hatred and all those things, physical pain, put them all together. Like, I woke up the other day and I had, a month ago, terrible. I thought about killing myself. I'm like, okay, let me write this down. And the first thought that came to mind is, I'm inferior to the world. And I'd like to think I'm a reasonably good human being, but it's just like, I didn't matter. Like, this makes no sense. We're trying to understand this logically. It has nothing to do with logic. It's all about what can get a person to that place of feeling emotions that will overwhelm you and convince you of things that nothing could be further from the truth. And the most accurate analogy is to tell you about one of the dogs that came to the sanctuary. It was a little Boston Terrier named Winston. So Boston is like a bulldog, but kind of smaller, and they're dressed in the black and white of a tuxedo, and they fart and they snore, and they're ridiculously happy. And so anyway, we're a forever home. I've taken care of more than 40 Bostons. I know the breed. And when Winnie came, I'm like, dear God, what happened? Because it looks like he had been fed into a wood chipper. Now, this is my dog. No, dear soul, sentient being, you stay with me. What happened? Well, what happened was a monster, and this is not figurative, this is literal. What happened was a monster decided that the best use of my dog, like his everyday existence, was to be used as a bait dog in a dog fighting ring. Of course, everybody here knows. It actually should be called a dog killing ring. Now, I've had more than 60 dogs. Dogs do not come into this life experience wanting to kill other dogs. They want to be part of a pack. Like, they're the ultimate connector. So how do you have a dog overcome its natural instinct? Well, what you do is you train it. and you put them in a tight, not enough room to move except for a little bit, octagon. So that's not enough. So what do you got to do? You got to entice it. What do you entice it with? Not a piece of raw meat. What you do is you throw in a living sentient being. That was my dog, Winston. That was his plight every single day. You want to talk about resiliency? I have no idea. Like, how on earth? Can you just imagine? It's not hard to imagine you in that situation. Like, you can't defend yourself. There's no way. It's not just one dog. It's a whole group of dogs. So all you can do is you retreat into a fetal position. You're like, dear God, let it stop. Like an endless part of migraines. It's like your whole body is being cut up. Like, dear God, please let it stop. And when it doesn't, you just can't do it anymore. You can't. There was a great officer in the Coast Guard who recently had ended his life, and I'm blessed. I do work with the Army and the Coast Guard primarily, and here's what his letter said. Thank you to everyone who has supported and loved me during this extremely difficult time in life. Today I have sunk to the lowest of lows. I can no longer face this world and the pain associated with it. It is with a very, very heavy heart I say goodbye to you all. This is not what he was thinking. This is what he believed, and this is what he was feeling. People kill themselves because of how they feel when they get to a point where it is harder to live than it is to die. I don't think it has anything to do with resilience. Please don't ever say, I would ask you, I did not lose my will to live. Please don't say that. What I lost was my want to live. Because when we say these things about resilience and coping mechanisms and other things, that is a not so subtle inference that, God, you should have tried harder. You know what? Suck it up. Okay, you know what? Here's what one guy said. And I don't think, before I tell you who said it, we would not put the adjective of wimp on this dude. I am now the most miserable man living. If what I were feeling were equally distributed to the whole human race, there would not be one cheerful face on the planet. Whether I shall ever be better or not, I do not know. I worry that I won't. To live better or die, it appears to me. Abraham Lincoln, 1841. Pretty good dude. This is not a new crisis. We just collect better data. Now, isn't it interesting? He did not start the quote was, if what I was thinking. What he said was, if what I were feeling. End of the quote. To live better or die, it appears to me. What he's saying is, I'm worried it's becoming harder to live than it is to die. I don't take my words for it. The people get into that place, you just can't do it anymore. I can no longer suffer from the pain. You just can't do it because it robs you of hope. Love and faith, we all want it. But the thing is, we don't realize hope is so confident. Hope is such a servant leader. I'll be in the background. Actually, what I say to the Army is the foundation of resilience. We want our soldiers to be resilient. Foundation of resilience is hope. I can't teach you to be resilient. Resilience only comes by way of, you gotta have an experience. You must have a first-hand experience. Okay, I didn't think I could go on, and I kept on going on. Well, how did you do that? How can you do that without hope? Like, hope is literally defined as the expectancy, not the guarantee. The expectancy that something good is going to happen. That is resiliency. But we realize, hope is like a freaking 155 millimeter shell. This thing can do some lethal, it is powerful, but shell sitting there looks kind of sexy. It can't do anything. It has to be weaponized. Well, here's the thing. Hope is the ordinance, connection is the weaponry. But then when I go into the psych ward, I got none of that. Second day, psychiatrist, who just like an average guy, the creation of connection, a safe place, he helped me understand. Now, underneath the Forest Hill Bridge, there's a confluence, when two rivers come together. You got the North Fork and the South Fork of the American River. Now, when these two mighty streams come together, they create a confluence. It's like a riptide. It's like a swirling dervish. It's like an undertone. You can be the best swimmer in the world. That thing can kill you. It can be harder to live than it is to die. So here was my confluence. I had some genetic influence. Grandfather had killed himself. My dad was really young. And I didn't have much memory of my father because I was so young. But my three older brothers, the general, John and Tom, said, man, Dad was white. He had nothing left. He had been filleted. So when cancer came knocking at the door at 41 years old, he was finished. Just, you don't have anything left. And this thing will hollow you out. And so Dr. went on to talk about this genetic predisposition, but he did this amazing analogy that at first I had no idea where he was going. He said, David, genetics are like dry tinder. And when you want to create a campfire, he asked me, he said, what do you need? We need a match. He said, exactly. Got really passionate. And then he said something, and I'm so fascinated with words and the way people articulate things, and the surprising way that when we see, and the Colonel and I talked about what we see, sometimes things can exceed our expectation because we don't know in the most beautiful way. And he said, David, it breaks my heart. Now, I wouldn't expect those words of empathy and really love to come from a psych doctor in a psych ward. He said that it breaks my heart that that match is trauma. And the first thing he helped me to understand that the fact that I lost my father at 7 years old, the fact that it happened 41 years earlier, made no difference. And he took his hand and he approximated the height of a 7-year-old child and took his finger like, this is me. He said, David, when a little boy loses his father at such a tender young age, it's a trauma that can, and then there was this dramatic pause, last a lifetime. So now he's approximated my height. The truth will set you free. I've lived my whole life, the older I got, like, come on, man. It's 4 decades, like, let it go. And if you think about it, it doesn't have to be 48 years. It can be 48 minutes. Like, trauma is that bad. It messes up your wiring. We need to have a different perspective, which I'll share with you in a moment. But this second thing, and I put it here because it was at like eye level. This thing had been staring me in my face for a long, long time. I was never going to tell this to somebody. And you know what? I hope you've had the experience at least once or sometime in your life you will have it where you sit in the presence of somebody it belies description because it's just so safe, and maybe you can unburden your soul. Maybe that person, by way of that listening defined as listening creates a sanctuary for the homeless parts in another person, maybe they do that. And before I could give it a conscious thought, yay or nay, what I shared for the first time in my life, that when I was 11 years old, I was brutally tortured and sadistically sodomized and raped and subjected to unimaginably bad things on repeated occasion at the hands of a scoutmaster. And the scoutmaster, every time he brutalized me, every time he ripped my body and mind apart, he said, hey, Dave, don't worry, we just got a couple more initiations, but hey, don't forget, we never talk about it. And so I didn't, and so I kept going to the meetings. Now, you can fight, you can flight, or you can freeze. I froze, which of course, an 11-year-old child here, and he got this mantra, this man was huge, that's the appropriate thing to do. But the older I got, the more I was like, a real man would fight back. A real man would have run away. A real man would have realized, no, you got to tell somebody, and I didn't. And now I've spilled the beans. I have said something like, oh, dear God. And I don't know if you've had the experience where you said something and you wished you took the words back. I'm going to take the story back. And now I'm crying. I didn't think it was humanly possible, and I can't breathe. You know what's incredible about this extraordinary man? He didn't try to stop me. Not because he didn't care, but realizing the words of Lady Bird Johnson, people have to have the opportunity to hurt out loud. This is the thing here to help us get to this. It was just like this space, and I am like my pants are soaked. I have just unleashed things that I've carried for 48 years. And I think back now and just held the space. And when I finally stopped, he looked at me and he said, David. And then he reached forward and he took my 2 hands in his in a way I'd never experienced. It wasn't creepy. It was like the first time we hold our boyfriend or our girlfriend's hand, or it was extraordinary. And he said my name again. He said, David, now I've lifted up and I really can't see. It's like when we all cried and it blurs our vision. And all he said is 4 words. He looked at me and he said, it's not your fault. So the question that paused me, the connection, seen, heard, and valued, and this, it's why I'm here. I really think it's all about trauma. I'm sure genetic can play a part, but I think if I had the genetics, but not the trauma, would I have been at that place? I don't know. But I think we need to please expand the way we look at trauma. We think, okay, trauma's got to be this. This was traumatic. Trauma only needs to be 13 words. Cambridge Dictionary. Severe and lasting emotional shock and pain caused by an extremely upsetting experience. Severe and lasting emotional shock and pain caused by an extremely upsetting experience. That's it. Doesn't matter if you think, come on, man, you lost your dog, you'll get another dog. Doesn't matter if, oh my gosh, you were with your mate for 50 years and they died. You can get another mate, you had 50 good years. The people who've lost their children, well, you got 3 other children. Like, it doesn't matter if we can't. It could be anything. It could be a financial situation. Yeah, you can overcome bankruptcy. Yeah, you know what? You'll get a new girlfriend. Yeah, you crashed your car and you drunk drive. Like all those things, it doesn't matter what it is. It just has to be severe and lasting emotional shock and pain caused, what's the foundation? An extremely upsetting experience. Until we give people compassion, defined as curiosity without assumption, we're never going to make any progress. We got to give people grace. We need to give people mercy. Not just those people, ourselves. So if you think, what's the combination here? You want to talk about 3 powerful things? What if you take hope? What if you take mercy? What if you take grace? You want to talk about creating the foundation? That's the climate. What's the culture of feeling seen, heard, and valued? That can transform people's lives. And so for me to learn how to be well, we already know this. H2F does a great job of this. Body, mind, spirits, diet, sleep, PT, time outside. I take 2 meds. They work beautifully. They're not happy pills. You know what they do is they quiet my mind. Me, I go to counseling. My therapist has changed my life. She first had to unleash this, open that up. Wow, that's what I believe? Can I think different? What's this cause? Now, I love therapy. People say, oh, I don't want to go see a therapist. Well, how much do people pay Tony Robbins to learn how to be different? Like, I don't pay that to Barbara. Well, how do I, if we break our leg, we have no hesitancy to go to the doctor. What about if our heart is broken? What about if our soul has been ripped apart? Why can't we go sit in the presence of a human being? I'm not saying it's a therapist. Go be with a chaplain. Now, I work with chaplains everywhere. Please know, they could care less if you believe in God. Really, I've worked with hundreds. They're not there to say, well, you're a Catholic, you should be a Methodist. They don't care. If they say, hey, can we start in prayer? Nope, don't want you to. They don't care. You are not going to upset them. It is in the bubble of perfect confidentiality. Try that. Now, I take my meds, I take my therapist, I take care of this goofy thing in front of you. I participate in a support group. If I'm out traveling every Tuesday, 6 to 8 p.m., it's a group of guys, middle-aged guys. And you know what we do? We offer each other support. If one of us tries to offer advice, wait a second. Say, hey, do you want their advice? University say, no, I just need you to listen. Please don't offer your advice to somebody unless they ask for it, or you say, may I offer something? And I have hope there. You know why I have hope? Because I hear other people's experiences. That's hope. Seen, heard, valued. Because it creates hope. What is hope? Let me give you something tangible. 1952, guy took a rat. Now, rats are known as really good swimmers. Didn't know this. Took a rat, plopped him in a container of water and said, hey, dude, how long could you swim before you lost hope? Right about 15 minutes. And at the critical moment, takes the rat out of the water, dries him off, puts him on a solid surface, gives him just a little bit of time to his respiration to normalize. Rat's probably thinking, man, I kicked it on the ACFT. I'm going to go take a nap. He said, no. Let's see, Mr. Man, how long you can go the second time. 15 minutes, second time, 2.5 days, 60 hours. It's called the Hope Experiment. You can look it up. I thought, how can that be? How can that be? Hope is the expectancy that something good is going to happen. The rat says, you rescued me the first time. Why wouldn't you rescue me the second time? You created the experience of me feeling seen, heard, and valued. Why wouldn't you do that again? It makes no sense. Like, that's it. But at this point, I always like to pause and just say, don't take it from me. Take it from him. This is my brother. Now, hallmark of my brother's career, and he is my dad, he is not going to tell me something I want to hear. If you serve for my brother, he's going to hold, he was hard, he was fair. He's going to hold you accountable, but he is going to acknowledge you. The man was a master at creating a culture and a climate of connection. So when he says this to me, he didn't say it because I wanted to hear it. David, your talk put into words what I've always known in my gut, but never able to clearly articulate, and that is your belief that connection creates hope and hope saves lives. It reinforces my belief that it's all about the expenditure of energy. By doing something, you demonstrate that you care to people because it is just too easy to do nothing. 42 years, E1, 2 stars. Amazing man. Don't take my word for it. You can put your money on this. Because that's the thing with hope. Winston, the bait dog, in all the animals, the transformation was extraordinary. I mean, you want to talk about from helpless to wellness? 11 years ago, my inside, I looked like this. My inside was like I'd been fed into a wood chipper. Here later, I look the same physically, I would hope. I bathed well. I got some scar tissue. I can get bruised, but it's different. That's the power of hope. It's not just some cuddly thing. I cannot be passionate about to say, if we give this thing, if we can create this by these ways I'm going to share with you, it gives somebody the ability to hold on, pain ends. Not Pollyanna. Hope doesn't say, oh, don't worry, it's going to be better. Hope says, this sucks. But I like to offer a different take on empathy. And we say, okay, man, you need to walk a mile in my shoes. Well, why? What if my shoes don't fit? What if they're too big? What if they hurt your feet? What if they're too big and I have blisters? Here's the thing. If I also ask you to walk a mile, you're going to be cruising down the road. You're not going to understand what you see. You have no reference. How about you keep your shoes on? I'm going to keep mine on. How about we companion together? When you see something you don't understand, you're like, hey, man, what's that about? Like, how does that make you feel? Wow. And then you think, wow, now you get to the point. You know where you go to? Understanding. That is like fantasy island. Now, understanding and agreement are not the same thing. I don't agree with sexual assault. I don't agree with racism. How can we solve something? How can we create possible solutions to something we don't understand? But here's the good news. Sun Tzu, Art of War. If you know yourself and you know your enemy, you need not fear the outcome of 1,000 battles. We don't understand this, and that's okay. Because part of it is we don't want to say, I don't know. And the Colonel and I were talking about this because, like, look, imagine General McConville, like, hey, sir, why are soldiers killing themselves? You know, say, you know what? I don't know. What? Apollo 13. Tom Hanks. Houston, we have a problem. What if all these smart engineers, and it's, we know exactly what to do. Remember the scene? Big box, duct tape, and everything else. They throw it out on the table because they didn't know. So what if we look at the issue of suicide? Like, we don't know. One, we're asking the wrong question. Why is never going to get us there? So when you ask what, you have to, just by the fact that you asked what, go ahead and admit, I don't know. So then you look at the problem in every possible way, like they did. Why can't we do that with suicide? Part of it's fear, which I get, but fear can be false evidence appearing real, or forget everything and run. I think what we're doing here is running away. What if we look at all I'm asking us to do is something different to get us to the end of today? That's it. So, 3 TTPs: recognition, understanding, and expression. I'm a freak about names. We all have a name. Because here's what's going to happen. If you practice this, there is going to be a day that you see me in front of me, I feel invisible. And the fact that you have called me forth, seen, heard, and valued in the moment. Now, a month ago, awful day. It was a nightmare, but it was a day. 2 weeks before this month, I go to the gym, which I'm good about PT. There's a new woman at the front desk. I know people. I have these micro relationships. And a relationship gives opportunity to feel seen, heard, and valued. So it's a new person. She has a name tag. When you see somebody with a name tag at the DFAC, at the commissary, when a server comes up and they say, hi, you know, what can I get for you? Say, wait, what's your name? Because when you don't call them by their name, they're basically a thing. A noun can be a person, place, or thing. They're just a thing. So she has a name tag on. Hi, Amanda. My name's David. You're new here. Oh, my God. And then over the next 2 weeks, these little touch points. Because, no, she doesn't know who I am. This is a busy place. So in those 2 weeks, she's probably seen maybe 1,000 people. So here comes this day. I do not want to be seen. I do not want to do PT. I need to. So I go in. I'm looking. I'm like, oh, thank God. It's Amanda. She doesn't know who I am. Like, I'll be able to just kind of go in. So I walk up, heads down, put my card down to be scanned. Here's what I hear. Your name's David, right? She said, I'm so excited to see you. I'm like, why? She said, I want to thank you. I'm like, Amanda, why on earth do you want to thank me? You know why? And then she got really emotional. I'm so confused. She said, you are the only person not only that has remembered my name, you are the only person in these 2 weeks that has, every time you see me, you say my name, you use my name. And she said, I promised myself that the next time I saw you, I would take the time to remember your name before I scanned your card. She had no idea. You will do that for somebody. You won't see it. It's a hard metric to measure. I can promise you'll do it. So quick technique, and I have to stay alone and give you more. PARA, first thing, pause, just stop. And then I always ask, what's your name? My name's David. What is your name? My name is Stephen. I always spell it. You can spell a lot of different names a lot of different ways. So is that S-T-E-P-H-E-N? Nope, it's with a V. My name's not Stephen. Sarah's are on the top of the list of crazy. I met a Sarah today. I don't know what it is. Sarah's without an H. Say, why would you waste a letter? That's stupid. Sarah's with an H. I had one come up to me and said, oh my God, I'm so glad you talked about this. never trust Sarah without an answer. I'm like, why? Because they're a bitch. You can spend a minute, Michael, and grade this really big, handsome NCO. He's like an E6. He said, my name's Michael. And I started to go down the passage. Nope, spelled with a K. And I said, may I ask you a question? He said, yes. How many times, your email has your right name. How many times does someone just automatically spell it the other way? And he says, happens all the time. I said, how does that make you feel? He says, you know what? I thought it's incredibly disrespectful. Like, dude, that's not how I spell my name. Like, slow down. My name's Sean. I don't use an H. Now, if Amanda had forgotten my name, would I have killed myself? No. But could that be one more crepe thin layer like, good Lord, man, no one's going to miss me? People don't even know my name. People don't even take the time to look at my email address and look, no, this is the way that I spell my name. Could that be one thing that adds this? Like, hey, could that be? I'm just saying, is it a possibility? So spell it and they say, do you like it? You'd be surprised how many people, there's one I would ask, and I'm just tight on time because I can talk for days. Thank God tomorrow I got 2 hours. Some people don't like their name, and the most tragic reason is typically a man who's been named after their father who raped them, their father who abandoned them, the father who beat their mother. So just think, if your name is Johnny, and you were named after your dad, the last person you want to be associated with is John. How do you think every time you hear your name? How about when you see your name in print? How do you think? So here's why this question is extraordinary. So you say, Mike, oh my God, that would be awful. Would you like me to call you something else? Universally, they say yes. And I say, okay, wow, does anybody else know that? In a circle of friends, it is so rare that somebody else knows that, and every time they're calling. Why is that important? One, they feel seen, heard, and valued. And let me ask you this question. Could it be a possibility because you took the time to know something, to have a question posed that almost no one ever does, that if that person ever wanted to maybe share something else, maybe you're the person they go to because you have cracked open a door, a possibility of connection, like, wow. Because we're not going to see the signs. We're not. These touch points, man, you just take that, you know what that does? That takes one crepe thin layer off the pile. So, spell it. Do you like it? What's the story? Like, how did you get your name? Like, we all have some interesting stories. I'm sure I heard a story the other day. A young woman was named after a chipmunk. I'm like, what? I said, I've never met an Alvin. No, my name's not Alvin. I'm like, I understand the chipmunk thing. They said, well, my name is Brittany. I'm like, what is that? Brittany is Alvin's girlfriend. I'm like, okay. Who came up with that? Like my stupid uncle. I'm like, okay. But the best combination of, I didn't like my name in the story, Colonel Jody Schaus, he's one of the brigade commanders at the 11th Airborne, amazing man. So he said, David, my name's Jody. You can imagine what that was like. He said, I got bullied, I had to learn how to fight. He said, it wasn't until I was 23 years old I asked my father, I was like, Dad, why on earth did you name me Jody? And he said, his dad got emotional. He said, son, when I knew you were going to be born, I knew automatically your name was going to be Jody because my battle buddy in Vietnam, who died, his name was Jody. And I wanted to give you his name to honor both he and you. And Colonel Schaus says, David, right at that point, like he was proud. He didn't know the story. Is it a technique to remember? Absolutely. You may shed light for somebody else. So ask, spell, do you like it? What's the story? If R, repeat it. If it's a unique name, give it a try. People will like that you gave it a try. And A, association. So pause, ask, repeat it, association, and you're going to forget. I do all the time. So let's say I know the captain's first name, and I'm like, oh my God. And I've just taught a class and I've done this. So my brother said, dude, it's okay. So I'd say, I'm so sorry, I forgot your name. Would you please help me remember your name? So what I'm asking you, because I want to remember you, I'm asking you to help me. Like, who's going to take offense? Now, let's just say this is me. And you think, because human behavior makes no sense, right? Like, dude, why would you come up here? Well, this is a bub. This is not like, I'm not talking about Bob, I'm talking about bub. This is sacred time. It's hot in here, we're getting a little sleepy, you're talking a whole lot. Because what happens is we don't realize that, life can shake us up. So a lot of times we don't know that, but let's just say in this case, Captain, don't worry. I'm a professional. Let's just say in this case, this is me. So you have to think, okay, first responder comes to the bridge, he's like, oh man, Mr. Man must be not just shaken up, his feelings aren't hurt, like he's in a bad place. So, okay, if I hand this to the colonel, he's like, God, I should not have taken you to lunch. That was a bad choice. Brandy, what were you thinking about? So, here's what this is why I'm here. The guy never put a hand on me. First thing he said, and please do this. When you know someone's in a bad place or you think, please do this. He said, man, I'm so sorry you're in this circumstance. Please say that. Not because you did anything. It's an expression of empathy. It's not pity. It's not sympathy. Because we all know what it's like to be in a bad situation. Hey, man, I'm so sorry you're in this situation. He said, man, I get a sense you're suffering. That's the other thing I'd like you to say. When you say that, it's not you're hurting. This is suffering. Because you have said a not so subtle indication. You're like, want to have a conversation. And his first question, I think, all right, man, don't worry. I'm a pro. Just get on you. First question. Yeah, he knows something's going on. First question, he says, hey, would you please tell me, because I would imagine you're feeling depressed, would you please tell me what does it feel like when you're depressed? I love this shirt. This isn't me, okay? What does it feel like when you're depressed? Now, first thing, never. You know how many times I've done this? You know how many times it's gotten on me? Never. It never will. You know, because you know what he taught? The key to keeping people safe, the key to creating the climate where someone will share is to slow things down. Curiosity is the single best way to slow things down. So he took his time. Now that's a problem for the Army. Got to fix it right away. Slow it down. Now, the other thing, can's still basically full, right? So the first thing you hear is, shh, you know what that is? That's thought. Now, I want this to come out, because you know what this is? What's visible? It's emotion. I can clean this up. I got something down here. That you want this to move. In the rare times that nothing comes out, I fail. You got to have something come out of this. Now, it's 99% full. You know what there is though? You know what the 1% is? A gap. What's a gap? Possibility. That's it. But you got to open this up. So he said, damn, what's it like when you feel depressed? And I shared, and he's like, oh my God. When someone shares something with you, please do this. Please thank them. This is not easy. He said, wow, man, thank you for sharing that. It had to be tough. Like, wow. He said, when you feel like that, what's it like on your worst days? He actually said, very, very worst days. Now you think, okay, you don't want to ask these two questions when a guy's hanging off the bridge. What's here? This is what kills people. This is what is killing soldiers because of how they feel. We don't ask these questions. I'm not saying they're easy. They're counterintuitive. But the thing is, the can's still shaken up. People can't get out of that space because these emotions will overwhelm you if you slow it down. Now, your mind, spatial awareness, situational awareness, tactical awareness. Now, these two things can potentially come down. Like, okay, whew, good gracious, I'm hanging off a bridge. Like, you're going to ask me what if, not what I'm thinking, what it feels like. Then you're going to go on and ask me what it's like to live with this. And then all you're going to do is listen. That's all he did. That's all he did. He just listened. And then he paused for what seemed to be like forever, and he said, gosh, I was just thinking, that's your worst day. Hey, man, well, what's it like on your best day? See, we want to start here. You got 40 years of hardcore belief, I can't think about this. This difficult question here sets this question up. Then he said, wow, that'd be amazing. Wow, thank you. Thanks for, man, that makes me feel good. Then he said, hey, have you ever thought, well, what do you want the rest of your life to be like? So, boom, 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 boom. And at that point, I shifted all my weight back to the safe side of the rail. I remember looking up. And we retraced our steps off. And here, I love grace. Just these little things we can do, what my brother talks about. So he looked at me and he said, hey, David, he's a big, handsome guy, had his vest, had his taser, had his service member. I know he had hope on there. Because God loved him, created this space of feeling seen, heard, and valued. He said, hey, man, I wanted to thank you. I'm like, what? He said, thanks for telling me how you feel. You know what? Now I understand. Could it be that easy? I think it creates, now here's the thing. You can do all these things right. There's still the possibility someone's going to pull the trigger. There's still the possibility someone's going to make sure this noose is going to hold tight. There's still the possibility people are going to jump. But you know what I can say? There's also the possibility they won't. How many people do we need to keep on the safe side in our effort to get to zero? Do we have to be at zero when we can finally say, oh, can we have some measures of success to that point? So last thing is we gotta let people know how we feel. Now, I love to text. My 71-year-old former M1 tank brother is a texting maniac. I was going to the 11th Airborne Division and was going to Alaska, never been. He said, hey, watch out for moose. And he sends me a little moose emoji. Now, my brother, I will show you my phone. I made the mistake when I got into Germany. I didn't let him know because he really is my dad. So I woke up this morning, he says, I assume you made it to Germany. So, that's it. I was tired, for God's sake. Anyway, every text conversation, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I will show you my phone. You know how my beloved dad ends every single one, he never misses. Love you, 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 love you. My brother does not say that because I want to hear it. My beloved dad says it because I need to hear it. So texting's great. Someone says, well, it's not as meaningful. Well, if we can destroy somebody's life by way of cyberbullying, why can't we support somebody by way of technological communication? Because the beautiful thing about that is, hey, sir, I was just thinking about you. Just, whatever. And then somebody's got a hard or special day coming up. Like, hey, if I have it right, today is this. Seen, heard, value. So, these, though, these handwritten notes, we know what it's like, not just from a 2-star. So a young woman who's like a daughter to me sent this to me because she was worried, hadn't heard from me. Last 7 words. Depression can't have you because you're mine. Right? You give me $1 million. But my little one, she has awareness that's incredible. So she knew Dad's not telling stupid dad jokes like, where does a polar bear keep his money? In a snowbank. Oh. If Dad's not singing, Dad's hurting. And so my daughter just wants to, how can I help my dad? So I go out to my car, this. Hi, Dad. This is Grace. I love you so much. Thanks for being the best dad in the world, and thanks for taking such good care of Mommy. Love, Grace. You know what my daughter didn't try to do? Change the way I feel. She didn't say, oh, Daddy, I'm so sorry you feel this way. I don't understand how you feel. Don't feel this way. Nope. My daughter knew, got to let that hurt out. All she was doing is creating the space. She was creating the climate to allow me to feel seen, heard, valued. This is not perfect. It's not. I don't know how long it's going to take us to get to this point. All I'm saying is we can stand on the shoulders of the great work that Brandy and the others are doing. We can have people become aware of the signs, but also by way of these TTPs, we broaden the awareness so that, hey, you can catch something that may not be typical, and the realization everybody's suffering. So last quote puts this whole thing together so much more beautifully than I can. Drew Ramsey is a psychiatrist, specializes in suicide. Here's what he says. Forget everything I said. Please take these words because it applies to every single one of us every single day. Someone you see today is thinking about killing themselves. Your smile, your question, your love, you know what? It could save them. You know how I know? They told me it did. I think we can do it. I think really it's incumbent upon us, no matter what we do, is to just create all these possibilities. All these possibilities. I think if they become these places that people can step into, if we can get people to pause, to realize that this is a lie, this is true, feel seen, heard, and valued, this beautiful thing called hope, I think we can outwit this thing. Thank you for the honor and the incredible grace of being here. One of my favorite quotes is, attention is the purest form of generosity. I feel rich. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for allowing me to be here, and God bless.